Hello and welcome to your Steeler Nation podcast, part of the DK Pittsburgh Sports podcast network and sponsored by Total Sports Enterprises. I'm your host, Stryker, and today I'm talking about AB. He has CTE. I'm praying for his soul, but before we get to that, we have to discuss Ben's night, his special night on Monday night. What a great game. What a great atmosphere. It was cold. The crowd was enormous and responsive and loud the entire game. Excellent game. Ben getting to go down the field, get that great RPO touchdown to DJ at the goal line, sticking it in for 6, at least getting a touchdown on the night. The defense had to play, and everybody played up for Ben's night. Defense was insane. You had Watt going out there getting 4 sacks, 2 passes defended or 2 passes knocked down. You had Highsmith on the other side with 2 more sacks. You had Loudermilk playing great on the other end with Adams in the middle, stopping the run with, of course, Hayward, always awesome, always knocking down balls as well. And the back end too, getting interceptions. How is that? Witherspoon with an interception, Norwood with an interception. And what a way to, like, Najee carrying the offense. That 188-yard performance was incredible to watch. The best running game thus far of his young career. And for him to be able to get 181 yards after contact. He had 7 yards before contact. 181 on top of that after he was hit. And he gained all that yardage. So great job, singular effort from Najee Harris, who is now, he got a 200-yard game with 18 yards rushing added on that in the night as well. But he's currently number 4 in the NFL in rushing as a rookie. He's only 30 yards from being number 2 in the league. So he's got a chance of being in the top 2 this week. That would be insane for the way that we started, the way that we had trouble running the football, even with Najee. Najee is still the perfect running back for this offense because he gets that yardage after contact. Connor was a great back, but Connor could not do that. And Connor's having a great year, but he still wouldn't get 600 to 800 yards would be the most he would have gotten behind this line. The most. And that's if he stayed healthy the whole season. But Najee stayed healthy the whole season, did not play like a rookie, saved his best game for Ben's final game. And I am glad that he didn't go down also. Probably he was told to go down, not for a gaming situation, not because they would have lost the game had he scored and given him a chance to come back and win. They were up by over 2 scores. That extra touchdown was icing on the cake. I think they just wanted Ben to get that kneel down. But Najee deserved that touchdown. It was the longest run of the year, 41 yards, over top of that 25-yard mark that he could not pass. It was Le'Veon Bell's problem as well. He couldn't go over 25 yards either. But he waited till his last game. He had 2 runs over 25 yards, ending with that final longest run of 41 for the final touchdown of the game. Great job by the defense getting that ball back one last time for Ben so he could come back on the field, kneel down, finish the game with the ball in his hands. And I know it was such an impactful moment for Ben in that game. The crowd was amazing. The entire game was loud on defense every 3rd and 4th down. And that's something I don't usually see. You don't usually see a crowd like that. Even in the AFC Championship games, there's moments of time where the crowd lulls and is not as loud as it is or needs Renegade to get back into it. They didn't need Renegade that whole night. They were into every single play. And the way that they were just harassing Baker, getting 9 sacks on Baker. We're not afraid of Baker. Sign him forever. Love to see Baker in there forever. Because he will always keep these games competitive, no matter how much talent he is surrounded by, because he's surrounded by elite talent, defense, offensive line, skill positions. He just doesn't have it. He's not the guy to get you to the Super Bowl, but he's the guy to keep the games close if the Steelers are playing their little brother in Cleveland. And I love seeing that. The crowd also stayed, like, this is a crazy thing and something I've never witnessed in all of my years in Pittsburgh, being a season ticket holder since '07. This is a Monday night game, past midnight. Ben has the final snap. No one, not a single person, moved to the exits that had black and gold on. Some of the orange walked out of the stadium, but a lot of the orange stayed to even watch this moment for their Findlay, Ohio native getting the accolades here at the end of the game. The press mobbing him, following him around the field as he did kind of like this little lap, comes over, sits down on the bench, the same bench that he sat down with Pouncey, with his head hung low last year, this year with his head high, looking around the stadium, drinking it all in. And I am going to remember most about this moment was him meeting the family on the field, hugging and kissing his wife, hugging his kids individually, giving them all kisses, and then eventually walking off the field, down the tunnel, all of them hand in hand with that image. That is an image I would put on my wall. Family man, Ben Roethlisberger, walking off to spend the rest of his life with his family. Perfect ending to a perfect career for Ben Roethlisberger, giving us 2 Super Bowls, a 3rd Super Bowl appearance. I mean, the guy was a class act. Absolute class act. Sure, he was a little bit immature up before 2010, but from 2010 on, nothing but a class act individual, Christian, family member. And that's who he's going to be. He's going to be a great positive influence in his hometown moving forward. He's got kids growing up here in Pittsburgh. He's got roots here in Pittsburgh. Still nice and close to Findlay. Can still make the trip over to see the parents, or see mom at least. But love to see that. And looking forward to the Baltimore game here too. Going to be a little tougher without DJ this week, but still Najee. Still have the rushing attack. J.C. Hassenauer will definitely be starting at center since KG, Kendrick Green, will not be playing with COVID. I don't see him being able to make his way back. So at least Antonio Brown, with his crazy antics, had something nice to say. Ben Roethlisberger, albeit like a completely wrong stance. He's like, I don't think Ben's going to retire. He's too much of a competitor. This isn't his last game. He'll be back next year. He's done, guys. He's done. Look at his stats from that game. Barely 50%. He now has an NFL record for the least amount of yardage with 45 attempts. He has an NFL record for the least amount of yardage. Right there, we know he can't make those passes down the middle. He doesn't want to for some reason. I didn't have any confidence of him making passes farther than 8 yards. Sure, he made a couple, but I didn't have the confidence of him doing it consistently. And on 3rd and longs, if it was over 8 yards, I didn't see him being able to clear that at all. And he had a real tough time doing that. He had to get a Chase Claypool shoe throw to get that 1 3rd and long converted. So thank you very much, Brownies, for throwing that shoe, because that led directly to his only touchdown drive before Najee finishing it off there at the end of the game. I got to talk about AB, the way he came off the field, this craziness that's going on, which is continuing to follow him, and his emotional outbursts. And I will state, and I will stand by this, AB has CTE. He has it. He is unable to control his emotions. It's getting worse each passing year. And that is a symptom of CTE. Not able to control your emotions. Also can lead to things like Alzheimer's, dementia, bipolar disorder, you name it. And a lot of people like to say, I hope he can get the help that he needs. Problem is, if it's CTE, he can't get any help. It's a degenerative disease. He's not going to get better than what he was the day before. It's going to consistently get worse, and it's been consistently getting worse here for these past 3 years since he's muscled his way out of Pittsburgh. And even toward the end of Pittsburgh, when he was starting to show some chinks in his armor there, speeding ticket, throwing furniture out of a window, in Florida narrowly hitting a 2-year-old. If he would have hit that 2-year-old, that 2-year-old would have been dead. Not being able to think rationally when it comes to a moving company coming over with his equipment, not being able to drop it off without proper paperwork, him having to get physical because of it, because it didn't work out his way. Was talking with DK earlier on Sunday night, when we had us all out for dinner, for the podcast dinner with the podcast network. We had a great time. He said when AB first came in the league, very humble, very happy to be there, working hard as a 6th rounder, and then just over the years, getting more and more progressively worse after that first contract, kind of getting a little bit more of a head on his shoulders and wanting to get the stats, and his stats being the most important thing. So that happened again here in New York when Tampa Bay played the Jets, losing the entire game. He had his snaps limited because of an ankle issue. Of course, Arians didn't want to push him. We're playing the Jets, so we can probably win, restricting his snaps, and they definitely did. Fortunately, got picked up and worked a little bit harder after he chose to leave the game. But the reason why what we were led to understand that he left the game, he's stating because it was an ankle injury and he didn't want to go in because it hurt. He never mentioned that to the training staff. He never mentioned that to his coach. His coach wanted him to go back in. He was telling his wide receivers coach, I'm not going to go back in. So when Arians came over to tell him, go back in, and he said no, then Arians pointed the exit, said, you can leave then. Get out of here. And he did in epic fashion, removing his shoulder pads and jersey, throwing his undershirt and gloves into the stadium, walking into the end zone while the clock is still moving and both teams are on the field. Fortunately, the ball wasn't snapped. That would have been a penalty against Tampa Bay, but still chose to do that. Obviously, they would have been on offense anyway. So Tom Brady was probably smart enough not to snap that football while AB was making his motions to the crowd in the end zone on the way off the field. And then, of course, eventually finding an Uber to the airport. But evidently, he's still somewhere in that area. I guess he didn't fly out anywhere. He's not showing up to practice and was just released today. I don't know where it's going to go from here for AB. I know past situations, Junior Seau chose to take his own life. Chris Benoit, the rabid Wolverine, used to be in the WWE, took the life of his children, his wife, and himself in a murder-homicide, suicide. That was probably the worst thing that can happen. We know Ernie Holmes shot at helicopters. We know Mike Webster, one of the first people ever to be studied and found to have CTE, was destitute, bipolar, dementia, living on the streets, homeless in Pittsburgh when he finally died in Pittsburgh. You know, these types of, how is AB going to go? From what I've seen from his career and what he's been demonstrating these past 5 years, I see it ending in a violent fashion, and I'm not looking forward to it happening. I'm not going to gloat when it happens. The writing is on the wall, and I can only hope that he can limit as much damage as possible when it does happen. But I'm afraid for his family. I'm afraid for himself. I'm afraid for his friends, because it seems like any disagreement, any emotional outburst toward him where he has to get angry can turn into something violent. And that's what you have to worry about when it comes to CTE and his inability to be able to get any better. He's supposed to have gotten therapy already. He had to get it coming out of Pittsburgh. He had to get it going to New England. He had to get it coming to Tampa Bay. It hasn't worked, and it's not going to work, because CTE is degenerative. It will get worse with each passing day. I will only pray for him and his family and his safety to go as safely as possible. But let's get off of AB. Let's go back to TJ Watt. and what this guy has done to put together an epic season for an edge player in the NFL. One of the top ever. Now, if you have a sack to games played ratio close to a 1, 0.8, 0.9, a 1, you're a Pro Bowler, you're an All-Pro. You're getting between 12 and 17 sacks a game. If 12 and 17 sacks for the season. And that is an amazing amount of sacks. Huge amount of sacks. Now, every 0.1 above a 1 is like a standard deviation higher, that it gets crazy with the numbers. So you have J.J. Watt with his best season ever with a 1.28. That is a high percentage. You have Al Baker, albeit before the official sacks were taken, he had a 1.43 year where he had 23 sacks in 16 games, which technically is the unofficial record. 22.5 is the official record with Strahan, and he is at a 1.4 sacks per game. All-time bests at sacks per game, Deacon Jones with 1.57. He did it twice. And Reggie White, all-time leader, 1.75 in 1987. 12 games, he had 21 sacks in 12 games. TJ Watt is in the same conversation as Deacon Jones, currently sitting at 1.53 sacks per game, averaging over, just a hair over a sack and a half per game. And if he gets his average for this game coming up this weekend, he will own outright 23 sacks for the season and be the official leader, sack leader, unofficially tied with Al Baker. If he gets 2 full sacks, outright leader in sacks for the NFL for a single season. And that's incredible to believe that he hit those numbers missing 2 games, missing 2 additional halves. So he essentially missed 3 games because he didn't play the second half of the Raiders game when he hurt his groin, didn't play the second half of the game a couple weeks ago with his cracked ribs. Now he's playing with cracked ribs and he ripped off 4 sacks last week. Incredible. Now, I've only wished that Lamar Jackson was playing in this game because we know how to contain Lamar Jackson. He doesn't throw the intermediate to short passes as accurately as his backup as Huntley does. So I'm expecting Huntley to get the ball out a little bit more, but we still have to rush him just about the same way to keep him in the pocket and hopefully get those coverage sacks with our players being able to help out on the back end. Going to need some help there with Hayden not being in for this game, but Witherspoon coming in with a strong game. 3 passes defensed and an interception. Incredible game out of Witherspoon. Hoping to see more of that. Probably have to be Witherspoon and Sutton this week, playing the edges, bringing in Norwood or Mullet. Now Mullet's back off of the COVID, so he can play again this week. I think they have a good complement, and they're able to operate with those guys this week. And that should be good enough to stop their receivers. Obviously, they're Brown. We have to look out for the most. Their best receiver, though, Andrews. Their tight end out of the middle. Incredibly, Steeler fans, Andrews is the first time the Baltimore Ravens have ever had a receiver over 1,200 yards. First time ever. Steelers seem to always have a receiver over 1,200 yards. That's it. So that is the problem with the Ravens never having really a wide receiver to be able to get that kind of yardage. But now they still don't have the wide receiver to get those yardage. Their tight end's getting it. I'm surprised Heap didn't get 1,200 yards in a season. But congratulations for the Ravens having their first 1,200-yard receiver. We've got to find a way to limit Mr. Andrews, to find a way to win. And obviously, that running game is going to be the best way and the best chance of the Steelers to find a way to win, because without Deontay Johnson, the passing game is going to be nearly impossible to move the football. The only other game we did not have Deontay Johnson in was the first Cincinnati Bengals game, which was the most infuriating offensive performance of the Steelers this season. No moving of the football whatsoever. Even worse than that KC game. Just couldn't. I had no inkling of the Steelers being able to even get a first down, let alone move the ball down the field and score. Very, very tough, difficult game to watch. I've got to bring up something else on TJ. I want to compare him to his brother, JJ Watt, here a little bit. Currently, TJ and JJ and their total sacks, they're only 31 sacks apart from each other. Now, when TJ first joined the league 5 years ago, he was 76 sacks behind his brother. 76. It's down to 31 now. So in those last 5 years, TJ has outsacked his brother 71-26 in the last 5 years since joining this league. There's only 1 year that when JJ had more sacks than TJ, and JJ had 16 in 2018. When TJ had 13, JJ had 16. So that's the only year. All the other years, all those other 4, TJ was way over the amount of sacks from JJ. And TJ still has one more game to play to add to those sack totals, reduce that gap a little bit more, but he's getting close to a sack a game for his entire career. Now, when I gave those numbers, those sack per game numbers, that were strictly for a single season. No one in the NFL, in the history of the NFL, has ever had a 1 sack per game finish for their entire season. So that's it. It's TJ can have it. TJ can have it next year if he has another 20 sack season. He will be over 1 sack per game. No other edge player, no other pass rusher has ever had a 1 sack per game career. Incredible stuff here so far in the young career of TJ. And obviously, the great pass rushers like Reggie White and them did hit moments of their career where they were at the 1 sack per game. But by the time, and Bruce Smith as well, both the only 200 sack player ever, but still, he did it in like 230 some games. Same thing with Reggie White at 198. He did it in over 200 games as well. So in your first 5 years, you still have 3 players in the elite category for most sacks in their first 5 years. Reggie White, number 1 at 81 sacks. The next 2 are Watt brothers. JJ Watt with 74.5, TJ at 71. So TJ would need 3.5 sacks to tie his brother and repeat another 4 sack game to be ahead of his brother to hold second place outright. And then not only the Watt family, but in the all-time NFL for your first 5 years in the league. And he's building on that. The Steelers locked down TJ Watt at the exact right time. Sure, highest paid player ever in the NFL, in the defense for defensive player in the NFL. Sign him. He has won us 4 games this season. 4. And he's going to be winning us games moving forward. And they deserve at least a 25 to 30 mil contract for a player like that, who's only going to get better these next couple years. This is the perfect time to be a defensive fan of rushing the passer for the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's going to get better. Highsmith's going to get better on the other side. Highsmith's already shown he's had multiple sack games. This guy is coming along nicely, much higher floor than we had with Bud Dupree. And I can't wait to see this guy continue to develop in this system, because I think next year with a healthy Highsmith, you can definitely count on him getting very close to 10 sacks next season. So injury-wise with the Steelers, where we're setting, moving into the game for this upcoming weekend, we've got Kevin Dotson, who could be activated. He's still technically on the injured reserve practice eligible. He has to be activated by the 12th, but obviously this game is going to be played before the 12th. If we get that crazy scenario where we can make the playoffs, he has to be activated before our first playoff game. We need Jacksonville to help us out severely, and we have to do our job in Baltimore. So Buddy Johnson, Trey Turner, and Dan Moore all have not practiced the past 2 days. Friday will be, it doesn't look good for any of them playing in this game. That means it looks like, who's going to be playing? Are they going to put Haig at left tackle, or Are they going to swap Chooks from right tackle to left tackle and bring Banner in for his first start of the season? First start of the season, because he did not start week 1 this year. It was week 1 the previous year when he got hurt in that Giants game. But we'll have to see if they choose to do that. Both are great run blockers. Both would play very well in that role. They just have to figure out what they're going to do guard-wise. That's why I hope Kevin Dotson can return this week. If he's active, if he can play, it would be great to have Dotson on the field there, helping out with the guards. And JC is going to get that start at center. So Terrell Edmonds and Ben Roethlisberger both were limited on Wednesday, both practiced fully on Thursday. I expect both of them to play. So expect them in. COVID-wise, we got everybody back. Bush came back, Buggs, McFarland, Sims, Miller, Joseph, Carl Joseph, Tyler Vaughns, Arthur Mollett, Daniel Archibong, Joe Schobert, and Chris Wormley all came back this week. That's big. Zach Banner as well. Marcus Allen, obviously, the previous game. Problem is, just lost Joe Hayden. 2 years in a row, Joe Hayden's going to miss the last week of the season with COVID. Hurts because he is a big, big need for helping out with the defense. Fortunately, we're not playing a passing team. We're playing a rushing team. And I think this is probably the scenario where it hurts us the least, at least. Kendrick Green, we already said, is out. Deontay Johnson is the biggest one that hurts. Number 1 receiver, 1,200 yards, put up good enough stats to be a Pro Bowler this year, and better stats than 2 of the people that made the Pro Bowl this year. So, Deontay Johnson, in my mind, he may be an alternate, depending on who makes the Super Bowl, but definitely a Pro Bowler in my book. I think he did a great year. Build on that again. He is our number 1. No question. So that's the injuries we have. And now it's time, Steeler Nation, for questions from Steeler Nation. My favorite part of this show. Go to SteelerNation.com, the football forum. I ask for questions each week, usually on Tuesday, and then I start taking the questions in until Thursday. And if you come over and join for free, you can ask questions and I will take and answer your questions here in this segment. First question from /Steel. Where do you place Ben in regards to all-time quarterback rankings? For me, I like winners for all-time quarterback rankings. I'd say Montana is going to be my all-time number 1. I'd have to say Tom Brady has to be my all-time number 2. I'd have to say probably Elway at 3, because he made it to, I think, 5 Super Bowls? 5 or 6. My gosh, he made it to a lot before he even started winning Super Bowls. Excellent quarterback. I wouldn't put him ahead of Bradshaw just because he played on the same team and he has all of Bradshaw's records, except for Super Bowl wins. But Bradshaw and Ben are probably up there in my next couple. And I'd probably have them, Bradshaw just behind Ben. But for me, Ben's still a top 5. I have him ahead of Marino. I have him ahead of Manning. I think Manning was a great quarterback. I think Marino was a great quarterback, but they were, stats guys. Didn't do a whole lot of winning. And with Manning, even when he started winning Super Bowls, it wasn't him. He wasn't the reason why they won. He had his running back win it in Indy. When he tried to pass it in New Orleans, he was intercepted, lost the game for them. He couldn't pass it all really for Denver, but Denver had such an amazing defense. That defense won that game for them. He just had to not make mistakes in that game to win it. And he did. And that's how they won that game. So that's where I have to put it. Second question from /Steel. Was our fan base great the other night or what? And spelling it WATT. Of course it was great. I was part of it. I actually sat in the stadium. I didn't know. I just couldn't leave. I sat in the stadium for like a half an hour after the stadium cleared. And there's just a couple people just hanging out. I wasn't kicked out. Usually they kick you out as soon as everybody clears. They are letting everybody just hang out. And I walked out. I don't know if Ben came back out. I probably should have stayed a little longer. I just didn't. I was just letting it sink in, like Ben let it sink in. What a great night. What a great night. And by then I was already numb with the coldness and the emotion warmed me up. It was great. Next question's from Diver. Do the Steelers have a post pattern or anything over the middle in the offense? Or do they totally remove even attempting to pass over the middle of the field from the offense? Well, Diver, the sad truth is they still run post patterns. They still run drags. They still run flies from the slot. Problem is Ben can't hit them, or Ben's not hitting them. Ben seems to be more comfortable throwing at the line of scrimmage or hitting the sideline. If he's going to go deep, he's hitting the sideline. And he's using his arm strength and in the motion of the player to get the people open. He doesn't like throwing where the safeties are. And we're not getting the safeties to move for some reason. So, yes, it is part of the offense. When I saw Rudolph in there, he was hitting those plays. So, they still exist. For some reason, Ben doesn't like throwing over the middle. And it's been a theme this season. So, that's one of the reasons also why this has to be Ben's last year. He's not the passer that he was. He can't make all the throws anymore. Matt Insomniac, next questions. If we accidentally make the playoffs, then what team do we want to play? And for me, if we make the playoffs, the only teams I want to play are run first teams, or teams that at least have a run balance that aren't strictly passing teams. And you're talking about your New Englands, Buffalo, Tennessee, and Baltimore. Those would be the only teams I would want to see. Don't want to see Kansas City. Don't want to see Cincinnati. Wouldn't want to see Los Angeles Chargers. Damn it, they moved. They keep moving around. Don't want to see the Los Angeles Raiders. Damn it, they moved. Las Vegas Raiders, because those guys passed all over us. We cannot stop passing teams. If it's a running team, this defense can stop running teams. This defense can keep those games close. This team can make sure that it's not a blowout in the first half. All four of those other teams blowout in the first half. We weren't even in those games. But that's who I'd play. Number 2 question from Matt Insomniac. Which of these best describes TJ Watt? Awesome, unstoppable, incredible. I will say what best describes TJ Watt, Defensive Player of the Year. 2 times should have been Defensive Player of the Year. He's getting it this year, and he deserves it this year. Deserved it last year. Probably, arguably the year before, but deserved it last year. Also, what is the chance that the media doesn't downplay it if Watt sets the record due to the 17th game? Yeah, you got to play the seasons that you're given, but I'd say that the media probably will not downplay the fact if Watt breaks the record in a 17-game season, because Watt got his stats in 15 games, which is 1 game less than Strahan got to hit his record. 16 games needed to get to his 21 and a half. So we'll have to wait on that. Also, what is the chance? Oh, that's it. Third question. After quarterback, what is the biggest hole on the roster going forward? I'm saying it's right tackle or inside linebacker. He likes Witherspoon at cornerback, looks like a legit starter. He likes safety. Edmonds, average. Problem is Edmonds is a free agent. Across the D-line, got a ton of development on the D-line. Completely agree. Mitchell and Dunbar have a long track record of getting guys up to speed, and I agree with that. Outside linebacker isn't deep, but we have the starter roles filled. Agreed. Tight end is too deep. I think we need a vet, personally. We need another wide receiver. We definitely need to draft a slot. DJ and Claypool are good. They're going to be on the roster next year. We got them both. For me, though, my number 1 hole going into next year, since Edmonds is not there, I want a playmaking safety. If we don't have offensive line or defensive line, no miss prospect at that spot, I want a hard-hitting safety, a playmaking safety, because we just had a guy in Edmonds. He didn't come up and really hit hard in the hole. He always tackle and kind of get pushed backwards. Let the plays happen in front of him, then make the tackle. I want a guy that attacks plays. I want a guy like, I've always wanted like Honey Badger. Always like Terry Matthews. But yeah. But, you know, if Honey Badger was on our team, we would have been insane. With him and our great free safety in Minka, that's a great 1-2 punch. That is something that would be very, very difficult to defend. So we could use a backup runner. He said, yeah, we're definitely going to get depth at runner. We'll draft a running back probably later. I hope it's a running back that can also be a punt kick returner as well. Always like competition in the punt and kick return field. Center guard area could also use some love, but I feel like unless a super stud is there, you try Green, vet back up next year. I say bring back JC. What he's done right now, you got to bring him back. He's doing well in our system. Love it. So what coaches do we expect to be gone? This is the second question here from Mad Insomniac. I don't think any, to tell you the truth. I think the only coach I thought that was on the hot seat to leave and get kicked out would have been the guy that's already left and gone to Oregon during the end of the season. That offensive line coach, Clem, he was done. He was done. He did not have it. He was part of Sarrett's coaching tree, I guess, and just did not make this offensive line what it should have been. I also don't think that the change is the reason why we did well, but we had a good game. We had the best game ever when he left. I don't think it was despite him. I think it was more because of Ben, and everybody wanted to play for Ben, and I love that. I absolutely love that. You said you think Ike Hilliard might be gone. No chance. Ike Hilliard was just signed last year. Steelers don't sign people or don't fire people after 1 year unless there's a big off-field problem, or yeah, that's pretty much it. You have to do something to really upset, do something out of character, do something to throw shame on the franchise. Ike Hilliard has not done that. And the wide receivers have performed as well as they can. DJ was at a Pro Bowl level. Juju got hurt early. If he was playing, Claypool would have had a great season. No lie. This team would be a lot better on offense if we had Juju. And even losing Ebron hurt, because Ebron filled that big slot role when Juju went down. He stopped being a tight end, a blocking tight end. He was the big slot. And it hurt that we lost both of them this season. Wish we could have gotten Ebron back. Mighty Guru, next question. Was getting rid of Clem, promoting Simo, and replacing Kendrick Green. Yeah, not Kevin Green. All we needed to move ahead, or was this just Ben willing these dudes to greatness? That's what I think. I just mentioned that a little bit there. Mighty Guru. It's more them wanting to play for Ben, I think, for this game. Moving forward, if we blow up the Ravens this next game too with these guys, which a lot aren't our starters, they're not going to have the starting left tackle and Dan Moore this game, not going to have Trey Turner, not going to have Kendrick Green. So 3 of the guys that were our starters this season aren't going to be on there. So if we have that JC, whoever's going to be at left tackle, if they have a good game against the Ravens, that guy's probably going to be our line coach next year. No way about it. Also, can Kendrick Green make a transition to guard? Simple answer, yes. He was a great guard in college. He would be excellent pulling. If we went out and got a better veteran idea for center, if JC wanted to be center and we want to slide him to guard, that would be great. I'd rather have him at left guard and move Dotson to his natural position of right guard, where he played all of high school, all of college. He is a monster at right guard as well, and he's still good at left guard, but he'd be even better at right guard. So that's where I'd see them all going. MTC's question: as a reward, do you like Golden Star stickers or Dairy Queen? So when I was a kid in elementary school, I loved the Golden Star stickers because I was very competitive. I got to compete against the rest of my class, see the bar up on the board, who's got the most gold stars. Though if you're in a situation where you're middle of the pack or you're low of the pack, you don't give a crap about gold stars. I was competitive. I cared. But ice cream is my absolute favorite. If I want a reward, it will be ice cream every time. Send me to Dairy Queen. Doesn't matter if you have 1 gold star or a whole row of gold stars. Every kid gets up for going to ice cream, and I am always for Dairy Queen or any ice cream. Baskin Robbins is more for my taste, and that is the chocolate ice cream with the peanut butter chunks in it. My all-time favorite flavor at Baskin Robbins. Questions from TMC. Our last questions coming in from TMC. TMC always running the gambit. Everyone seems to think Green was the biggest problem with the offensive line. Is he truly as bad as he appeared? And where can he help the team going forward? I'd say he's very athletic, but he was a little undersized this year. I personally said he hit the rookie wall 3 weeks ago. Couldn't really help the team after that point. And he can put up some size this offseason. I still think he can be a center in this league. I think he has to work on his conditioning a little bit more, build on his size and strength, get a little bit bigger, and I think he will be a fantastic center, but he still could move to guard. Wouldn't be, I don't think he's going to be out of the Steelers' plans as a starting offensive lineman anytime soon. I think he's going to be a good player. Number 2, yes or no? Will TJ Watt break the single season sack record? He only needs a sack and a half to tie it, needs 2 to break it. I say yes. I say yes, he's going to do it, especially with the 4 he got last week. He will find a way to get 2 this week. Find a way. 3, what position do we draft in the first round? I think it comes down to best player available. It will not be a quarterback. I don't think we're going quarterback this year. I think this is a rebuilding year. We go strictly offensive line, defensive line, maybe inside linebacker if a great prospect drops, maybe strong safety if we get a great prospect, because safeties always drop. If you can find a great strong safety, bam, you take them. You take that. That's where my personal position in. Even cornerback. Hey, if we're not going to re-sign Hayden and he's a free agent, we got to bring somebody else in. Have to. Number 4, -7 for the high here today. These are always the fun questions. I love these, TMC. Should I venture outside with only a G-string on? Will I survive more than 30 minutes before I get hypothermia? Well, I'd say yes and no. Now, if we're saying -7 Fahrenheit, then that's very cold. I think maximum with no clothes on, 10 to 20 minutes max, you'd survive in that kind of temperature. Now in Celsius, where 0 is 32 degrees, -7 from that, you probably last about an hour outside. You'd survive much longer than -7 Fahrenheit. So I will also state, I saw a player at the game Monday night. I saw a fan, huge fan, wearing nothing but Steelers suspenders and no shirt. He had to be close to 350 pounds. But that guy I saw him after the game walking across the road in suspenders and no shirt. And the guy survived an entire game, entire 4 hours, albeit probably helped out by increasing his blood alcohol content to increase blood flow. That can also help you live a little bit longer. So have a shot of whiskey before going out there, and you can last a little bit longer in that condition. So thanks for doing these, Cope. You are very welcome, TMC. Enjoy your meal. I know you love listening to these while you're cooking. Steeler Nation, that's all the time we have on the Steeler Nation podcast today. Go over and see our sponsor over at tscshop.com. Make sure to check out the great sports content over at dkpittsburghsports.com and read their great Pittsburgh focused articles there. Go over to SteelerNation.com if you want to read our Steelers focused articles or see our podcast as well. Tweet us at Steeler Nation. Instagram us at SteelerNation.com. Follow the Steeler Nation podcast on Twitter at _SN podcast or Instagram, Steeler Nation podcast. And you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at SN Stryker. Thanks for joining us on the Steeler Nation podcast, sponsored by Total Sports Enterprises and part of the great DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. I am your host, G. Stryker, rooting along with you as always. Go Steelers!